like I said, the balls, me starting to hear about the balls and them mentioning it, but I didn't know what none of this stuff was at the time.
Wow.
And those were just some of the ones that influenced me when I was in D.C., so.
Wow. Those were a lot of names.
Yeah, there was a lot of names. Like when I first came out the closet, I mean, like I said, I met I met a lot of people, and a lot of those people were, they were really, I would consider them like really good friends, especially the names that I named, from D.C. Like a lot of people know them, some may not. But those were a few people that were dear to me, and a lot of them have, passed away. So,
Yes. Wow.
But they were really influential.
So sad.
Yeah.
So let's just take it a step back real quick. How was it for you at school? Dealing with this kind of stuff.
In school, you said?
Yeah. How was high school for you? Growing up as a young.
When you say how was it for me dealing with,
all of this, the gender identity and having the club life at a young age.
At the time, I mean, like I said, at the time, I never even knew about the gay life, or when I was in school, I never knew about that. And now I quit school when I was, oh my God, nigga, had me think back.
Wow.
I quit school in my 9th year due to the fact that the family problems that I was going through. I quit school. And when I was in school, I remember them calling me gay, or calling me a little punk, or calling me a little faggot. And at the time, I really didn't know what it was. I mean, you didn't have, I was in a small hick town, and I only recall 2 guys that were in school, and they were very flamboyant. But I still didn't know they were gay.
Right.
I didn't know. We talked in school, hey, how you doing, bye? But it wasn't like we hung out after school. And so, I know that they were very flamboyant and they were very different, but at the time, I had no idea what the gay life was about. I had no idea that they were gay. I had no idea, about myself at that time. That was a very, very young age for me. And like I said, I didn't learn about the gay life until until I moved back to D.C. But I would say it was kind of touching when I was in school, when they used to call me those names, a punk, a little faggot, or whatever, and I found myself fighting. Like, I will fight the female, I will fight the men. Anytime someone bothered me, I always would fight, because when I was younger, I was one of them timid individuals. And I found myself fighting a lot, because I remember when I was younger, some kids were jumping one of my little friends when I was younger, and I didn't see my mother watching from the balcony. And when they were jumping my friend, I start running away. And my mother screamed out on the balcony, "You better not run. You better stand there and fight. Because if you run, when you get up here," she said, "that I'm going to whoop your A."
Yes.
When you get up here. And when she said that, and I was very, very young at this time, and I still remember this. I remember carrying, and then it probably was around Halloween. I'm not for sure. I remember carrying a Halloween trick-or-treat bag. I had 2 Halloween trick-or-treat bags, and I had the legs from a nightstand table broke off, and I had them. I was carrying like pieces of the broken off table in bags, and I remember pulling out two of those legs, and I ran to where they was jumping my friend, and I just started beating the boys up. I'll never forget it. Ooh. And from that point on, I always remember what my mother said, because when I went upstairs, she said to me, she said, if anyone ever punks you or bully you, you fight them. Even if you had to fight them out of fear, you fight back, is what she told me. And I ran with it after my mother got killed in 1978. I ran with it all the way through my school years. Like, anytime somebody bothered me, or I felt that they was bullying me, or they were punking me, I would fight them out of fear. And I found myself, like getting expelled from school a lot. But that wasn't by my choice. It was because anytime, like when you were younger, anytime when you get into a fight and you constantly fighting in school, the first thing that the principal is going to start thinking is, okay, this is the one who's starting the fight, because every time you turn around, he's in my office. So that's how it went for me. And a lot of times it really wasn't my fault. Anytime somebody picked on me, I just fought out of fear. I was one of them quiet kids when I was younger. I was shy. I was scared to speak my mind. But anytime somebody bullied me, I would take the first leg, because my mother told me, if you had to take the first leg, take the first leg. And that's what I did. And I found myself being expelled from school a lot, that's how I quit school. I was going through family problems at the time with my grandmother, and I also was dealing with being expelled so much until it came to a point in my life where I quit. And I eventually had a gang that wanted to beat me up, but that was only because I switched schools to go to another school to try to make the situation better. And where I was staying at in North Carolina was considered a city. I started going to a school further out in the country, and that school didn't like the school that I came from, because we always beat them in all the sports games that there were. Our school always beat them in the game. So when I started at the school and they found out what school I was from, that's where it all began. The fights, the trying to set me up, the trying to jump me. And I had started going at that school towards the end of the school semester. And it came to a point where I had to quit, Wow. I had to quit right before the ending of school, because if not, there's a possibility that I could have gotten killed, And once again, this is not my fault. This is only because of the school that I had, I came from. So that's how I ended up quitting school. So I quit school, like I said, in my 9th year. But through God's grace, I have my GED now, and I got that in 2000. So,
congratulations!
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I can relate. I totally kind of had a similar experience. Always in trouble because of the teasing, and I was a person who I always wanted respect, so I always followed, to get my respect. But it's not about me; it's about you. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how did you get into the whole ball thing. But before you answer that, I want to ask you a question. Did you feel you were very, very multi-talented?
When I was younger, no, I didn't. I knew that when you're younger, you have you be having these dreams at what you want to be.
Right.
And I remember I had a few dreams about what I wanted to be when I was younger. I used to want to be, I used to always say I wanted to be a secretary, because there was something about me seeing people use typewriters and the way that they were typing and stuff that I wanted to be, I wanted
Signs
to,
of organization.
I wanted to be a secretary. Yeah, I wanted to be a secretary. And then I went on this spurge where I wanted to be a rapper. Didn't know how to rap. All I knew is that I used to like the rappers from back in the days, and some of the ones who made me want to be a rapper was when I used to hear the real Roxanne Shante, of course, LL Cool J, Run DMC.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, so I wanted to be a rapper, and then I wanted to get into fashion. I wanted to get into fashion when I was younger. And well, let me see. I'm trying to figure out. I think it was something about a sewing machine. I remember. You know what it was?
What?
This is what it was. What made me want to get into fashion was because when I was younger, like I used to go to school and watch the kids in school, and I would look at the stuff that they would have on, and I would compare it to what I had on. And a lot of kids used to pick on me when I was in school, or they used to pick on other kids, and that made me be more aware. And what I noticed is that they had the finer things in life. Like back then, your jeans that you used to wear was Lee Wrangler jeans, Jordache jeans. The kids they had name brand shoes back then, and I don't recall me having any of those things on. I had none of that on. I had no Wranglers. I had no Jordache on. Everything that I had was no name brand cheap stuff. And I always wanted to get into fashion because I used to want the stuff that they had on. And then it was something about when I was in school and you had to pick the vocational classes that you wanted. And mine that I was fascinated with was home economics. And I wanted to get into cooking at the time, and then it was something about them showing us the home economic classes, and I saw a sewing machine, and I wanted to learn how to sew. But of course, none of that happened for me, and just watching was how I determined what I wanted to want to be. Like I said, I learned stuff as I go along, but what shattered my dreams was when I started going through my childhood family problems. That's what, like I said, it just kept me running. So my mind was just zoned out, and it took. I'm going to tell you this. It took until I'm going to say 2012 or 2013 for me to learn how to deal with my mother's death. All these years I have went through the mourning of my mother's death, not understanding why my mother's not here. And in the midst of that, going through the family problems all at the same time. So that shattered my dream, and then my drug addiction came into play. I had a real heavy drug addiction, in which I do not have today. Today, I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't do any type of substance abuse. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do any of that. But for a long time, I'm going to say 29 years, I had a big drug addiction. Like, and hardcore. 29 years was the hardcore drug addiction. But I was doing drugs before that because I can remember smoking weed when I was younger. I remember my uncles sneaking me weed. I remember seeing like my friends because I wanted to be accepted. Those kids that had the finer things, those clothes and stuff that I was telling you about, I always wanted to be